is Lauren Lewis, and this is my audience.
Madison,
Tritton,
Skylar,
Bailey,
Kat, Tori.
A Scientific American once said on March 1st of 2013, many of the 1.5 children in the U.S. whose parents divorce every year feel like their world is falling apart. During the process of divorce, it is affecting everyone in the family. Growing up, I've always lived with my mother. I only get to see my father twice a year, and he lives in Twin Falls, Idaho, with my 3 stepsisters and my brother. Because my parents divorced when I was 2 years old, this hasn't really affected me as greatly as everybody else's. Although divorce may seem like the best option for some parents, the effects on children could be long-term. This may include children's emotional problems, their school performance, and the adult state of mind or mental health. Divorce introduces a massive change into the life of a boy or girl no matter what the age. Sussex Publisher states in the article the impact of divorce on young children and adolescents on December 19, 2011. Going back and forth between 2 households and watching their parents break up are 2 of the hardest things to do. A child is dependent growing up. They depend on their parents to support them and care for them. They depend on them to teach them and guide them through life until they have grown to be independent. When parents divorce, that tends to speed up their process of independence. They are so used to being alone when their parents divorce that they end up wanting to be alone. One stage of divorce is the part where they separate, which is very hard on the child. As the parents struggle to maintain a relationship with their child, the children is also suffering. As people adjust to this, it can create physical and emotional stress. My mother and I haven't had a very good relationship growing up. I have a better relationship with my father, and I think this is because I never get to see him. I sometimes feel this is the only reason, because I can see him twice a year. I always miss him, but this is nothing new. Think about the way a child must feel when they find out their parents are getting a divorce. They have watched a caring and loving couple crumble and fade away. Although, as much as you would think that the symptoms or outcomes of divorce would be long-lasting, Hal Arkwoods explains in the article, Is divorce bad for children? That it only affects them in the long run. She explains that many children experience short-term anger, anxiety, shock, and belief. To me, I have grown and been able to develop and learn, and this is something that happens to parents. Failing in school is something that is common for kids to go through when they watch their parents go through a divorce. Whether this is acceptable or not, this is something that still happens. In paragraph 1 of the article, Physiological and Emotional Aspects of Divorce, Kathleen Corcoran describes how this may be caused because of pre-divorce. The events that occur before a divorce is something that the children will remember. Children often find it hard to concentrate on academic work with attention and diligence because they have experienced deep conflict. This gives them a sense of insecurity and instability. Education requires a joy of learning and a love of life. With these things, you could suffer through school and not have the motivation. Divorce impoverishes children's source of happiness and delight. It imposes upon them as an oppressive way of sadness. While children are young, they are always wanting to please the ones that they love. It is hard for them when their parents are splitting apart. Divorce deprives them their source of happiness. Now that I am grown and older, my parents depend on me to communicate. If they want something done, it is my job to tell the other parent. Without peace, harmony, and order in home, it is hard for the students. They struggle to give priority and importance to their studies. Through every divorce, the main focus is how it will affect the children. But what about the parents? In June of 1997, Kathleen Corcoran said that over 50% of marriages end in divorce. There are many reasons why this happens, such as they divorced too young, they married too early, or they cheated on one another. 50% is the majority of marriages, and this percent has probably grown since 1997. Parents must worry about their children when they get a divorce. Sometimes a parent will stay with the other parent just so that the child will grow in a stable and long-lasting environment. They don't want the child to suffer if their parents split up, so they make sure that they do everything they can for the child's happiness and safety. Being with the other person in a relationship sometimes isn't the best option. Some parents go through a divorce. Some parents go through emotional or physical abuse. Another thing that could cause the parent to not be in the right state of mind is financial problems. For example, if the father is the only one working when the parents split up and the mother has no job, what can she do for the child? This can be hard for both her and the child. This will cause the mother to be depressed and stressed. Divorce relates to depression in many ways. Per Google, the definition of depression is a mood disorder that causes a persistent feeling of sadness and a loss of interest. It is also called depressive disorder or clinical depression. It affects how you feel, think, and behave, and also can lead to a variety of emotional and physical problems. This is something any adult or child can go through. It can be even more hard on the parents when the child acts out. It makes them feel like nothing, but they have to keep going and be strong for the child. Divorce maybe isn't such a bad thing when people think about it, because sometimes it is what's best for the couple. Although as hard as divorce is, the child's safety and education is on the line. Another thing that is important to know when people are going through divorce is that sometimes the parents are not okay. As a teenager, sometimes we don't understand why parents do what they do. But it is to protect us, and at the end of the day, they have our safety in mind. Sometimes I don't think about everything that my parents do for me. Since my parents have been divorced for almost 16 years, I have learned to see both sides of things. I now have a big and beautiful family. Both my mother and father remarried, and if they hadn't divorced, I wouldn't have come to know my sisters or my brother. I now have family all over the place, from Washington to Oregon to Idaho to Missouri. Hal Arkowitz explained on Scientific American that although divorce is hard and often extremely painful for both children and adults, long term is not inevitable. Most children bounce back and forth and get through this difficult situation with very few battle scars. Thank you. That was terrible.